In the meantime, actually, it's encouraging to see, Chido's model, and I started to see that in China as well. This is called a social entrepreneurship, which, yes, China is a big country. The state part, actually, we have state-owned companies. They are the dominating figures, and then you have all those big multinational companies. To tell you surprisingly, actually, out of Fortune 500, more than 480 of them are operating in China. So you have all those big figures, actually, in China, capturing probably the large part of the market. In the meantime, you started to see this kind of emerging, community-based kind of social entrepreneurship actually emerging as well. So, I mean, like overall, as I said, and the vision, the future is very clear for all of us, I believe. And more importantly, actually, we need to figure out how to really scale up mainstream the innovation, what we're talking about today, really make sure to scale them up at the pace we would like to see to get the future as soon as possible.
Thank you. Who has a question to raise? There is a lady, first row, please.
Good morning, I'm Tina Quizan, and I wanted to ask you, so how can we, I hear some familiar words again and again, who are we serving? Reach the unreachable markets. How can we create the human capital market so that it's on the financial sheets?
And the question is directed to...
So how do we do that? For whoever would like to embrace the question, how do we take the 3 billion, the untapped human potential market, and begin to put this on the financial sheets of all the corporations around the world?
Maybe I can submit that Chido should respond to it, because she is reaching out to the untapped, and maybe Orphans represents one of the most untapped resources. Chido, you feel like responding to that?
I don't know if what I'm going to say is going to answer you completely, but my thinking is that, what I've been finding to work, of course, I'm just like them, and it's easy to think that's what works. So in order to exploit the human potential that is lying there unlocked, I think the best thing is to be able to understand their needs and then use that to get to them, because that's what works the most. It's been very easy for me to go and talk about mushrooms, and then in the end you start talking about, when you talk about mushrooms, then you start talking about things like vegetable gardens, animals, compost toilets, and then now you're touching the water, the energy by the use of compost toilets, and then making their own, bedding materials and clothes. But it all starts with food. So you have to find what connects what connects best with them, and food has been the most important that I've identified so far. And then there's something about, I don't know if this is applicable to everyone, but for me, what made me really feel like maybe this is the way to go is, so often when you grow up as an orphan, no one attaches that much importance to you, and some people not even when you're not an orphan. And when you start learning to produce your own food, suddenly you feel like, wow, I can actually help myself. And when you can give that to the next person, then that kind of adds up value, and the different kind of exposures that I'm getting now. Coming here, it's like a completely different world for me. But just being there and being able to learn, and also picking up things that you can start looking at. But it all starts with me needing to provide food for myself, and it took me all the way here, and it created the need to want to understand more.
One question in the back there.
Jonathan Caledon, everyone, from the US, and with the Nature Conservancy, the International Conservation Organization. I just wanted to ask the panel, and you as well, Gunter, since I heard this embedded in your question to my conservation colleague from WWF, about there are plenty of us in the conservation community these days working very hard on certification and sustainable standards issues. And I really heard you ask whether those of us working in the community think we're succeeding with it. And I'd love to get the panel's view on that and your view on it as well as the moderator.
So, panel, who's ready to talk to it? I would say probably Stefan, you not. Let's ask Dao. Do you go for certifications?
Yeah, there's a whole variety of certifications that we have to pursue, as well as ones that we voluntarily want to pursue.
And which ones do you want to pursue?
Well, I mean, there's for example, in carbon credits area, we have to go through standard approaches there. Actually, with the Nature Conservancy, Dow and the Nature Conservancy have a partnership in Brazil where we're helping preserve the Atlantic forest near Sao Paulo. It's a reservoir there. And that is a very important project from a conservation point of view. But the more innovative piece of it is that they're building carbon credits from the restoration activities, and then we'll sell those carbon credits in order to fund more conservation. And so we've been very pleased there to work with the Nature Conservancy and experiment together to learn how the kinds of processes you need to actually gain certification for those kinds of credits and build a new business model around that.
Eric, which is the most coveted certification that Schneider has? Which is the one you really are proud of? That was the great one to get.
But typically when you work in building, and many around the world are trying to classify what is a green building. For us, we try to contribute the difficulty, and it's true across the world, is the consistency of all these certifications. We don't seem to have a plan to make them consistent from one country to another. So it makes a lot of pressure probably on the regulators, and we're demanding of having more clarity on that. It's true for building, but it's true for industries as well.
So you're saying at this moment we don't see really clear. There needs to be a kind of a standardization of many of these certifications that you need. I was asked to give my comment. I think certifications are a factor of the reality of a certain time. Let us remind us that the certification for organic food emerged when there was too much DDT, and emerged at a time when food chemicals were absolutely unhealthy and even toxic for human contact. I would like to submit to you that perhaps certifying something is organic is not as important, because it tells you what is not in the food. If you certify it organic, you don't have the chemical, you don't have the fertilizer, you don't have the pesticide. I would like to know what's in there. I would like to know what's in there. And I would like to know in particular if it's not only food that has fat and protein. I would like to know if it is very healthy for me, if it represents biodiversity. Is this a product of biodiversity or not? Is this a product which is one of the 300 varieties of rice, or is it just the one variety we've industrialized? Is this the product, for example, that is representative of culture and tradition? Is this buckwheat that is harvested the way the Bhutanese have been harvesting this for centuries? Is this actually a bison that is herded in the pueblos in America the way the bisons used to be herded for hundreds of years, thousands of years? I think we're looking indeed for certification for a moving target, and we will always have new ones and other ones become less interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have used the time we had allotted. I would like to thank the panel for their contribution, for tolerating this eccentric coordinator. But I appreciate your contributions, and let's hope we continue the discussion way beyond this panel. Thank you.